Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Reasonable Doubt, brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. It is 8 o'clock, Julio Vela, and...
It's 8:05 and
8 o'clock.
OU still...
It's not even 8:05, it's 8 o'clock on the dot.
Oh, my bad. You know what? But when Dan Simons is on the show, we want to say hello.
Well, hello to you as well.
Our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the Republican candidate for County Criminal Court at Law here in Harris County, number 8, Dan Simons. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show.
Clearly, you did not get the orange memo tonight.
This is clearly because of GOP Republican red. This is not OU. I'm a Longhorn fan. Just saying out there.
Just checking. Julio has brought the orange controversy to the forefront tonight.
I did.
You've worn bright orange.
I did it right. I did it strong.
I have chosen to wear burnt orange.
Well, it's like 8:03 and OU still, you know.
It's 8:01.
8:01, it's fine. It's
Good try.
the same. They stayed the same.
It's going to stay the same for the whole hour, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be with you for the next hour talking criminal justice issues with our candidate here. We are continuing the candidate shows that we've had going for, a week now? 2 weeks?
Couple weeks.
Yeah, so we'll continue that up the rest of this month, all the way up to the election in the first week of November. So we're excited to have Dan here. You can call in with your questions. 713-807-1794 is the number. I also have Twitter right here in front of me, ladies and gentlemen, so you can hit us up at hccla_TV. Send your questions and comments. We'll get them on the air right here tonight. Dan.
Sir.
You're in the hot seat tonight.
Hey, bring it on. I feel pretty good about this. Ask me whatever you want to ask.
Well, I want to mention at the outset, we did invite your opponent, Franklin Bynum, on, the Democratic candidate. He unfortunately had child care issues and could not make it on tonight, so hopefully we will get Franklin on at some point in the next few weeks. I think it's only fair that if he's able to make it on, since we are trying, if we have one candidate on, we extend the invite to the other and try to get both sides of the benches that we have. Obviously, we're not able to get all the benches in before the election. We're doing our best to get as many candidates as we can on. And like I said, it's unfortunate Franklin can't be here tonight, but that's the way it goes with schedules and kids and everything, being a parent, so we understand. But if we can get Franklin on, we hope to do that at some point as well. But you're here tonight, so if you want, why don't you give a little intro about yourself? Tell us, how'd you get here? Are you a native Texan? I mean, you're wearing the crimson, but you're a Longhorn fan. You got to do some splaining here.
I definitely can explain this, but it won't be a short, small intro. I mean, I'll go ahead and kind of give you a lot of backstory because, there's a lot of people out there that don't really know who I am. They know of me and about me, but
Sure.
not really me. So yeah, I'm from here in Texas. I grew up in the Beaumont-Port Arthur area. Nearly all my childhood, I was homeless and in foster care. At the age of 12, I moved in with friends that I met through the Salvation Army. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. Neither parent got past 6th grade. My brothers and sisters never graduated high school. I became the first person in my family's history to graduate high school. And all my life, coming from where I come from, you hear these words, you can't, all your life, you can't do this, you can't do that. And in high school, I wanted to be a quarterback. And they're like, you can't do that, you don't have a name, it's impossible. I graduated in the number 4 in my class, and I was an all-district quarterback. But the family I moved in with, we had an agreement that when I graduated, they couldn't take care of me or help me out with college, so I joined the Air Force. My dream was to be a cop. So I went in the Air Force. I got stationed at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. And that's significant because my life takes a different path in Utah. While I was in the military, my biological dad has been disabled nearly his entire life, fished for a living. And he had been in a serious boating accident. He put his arm up to stop the boat motor from hitting his face, and it chopped his arm all, and he almost died. At 19 years old, my dad became my dependent. I'd be basically my man-child from the age of 19 all the way up till his death in 2015. This is while I was in the Air Force. And I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed overseas. My dad had a caretaker to take care of him because he was going through surgery and stuff, and that person abandoned him while I was overseas. And I had a choice to make, to either sacrifice my military career or give my father up as a dependent, and you just don't turn from responsibility. So I exited the military, and somehow I ended up in the art gallery business. I went into Park City, Utah, because every winter I got volunteered for overseas duty, like Bahrain, and went into an art gallery to do their computer work. And the lady says, well, we're actually looking for a sales consultant. And I said, ma'am, I hate art and I hate sales. And she's like, you'll be perfect for this job. And I'm like, I don't think you heard me, but within a year and a half in that business, I became the best salesman in that company and rose to the top. But then I heard that word again, you can't. I was an assistant director. I was 22 or 23 years old, no education. And they said, you can't become a director because you're young and you have no education. So I did what any rational 23-year-old would do at that time. I found a partner. I bought an art gallery up the street, and within 3 months, I put my old company out of business and had my partner paid off. The problem is, my life growing up, everything's been about a handshake. Your honor is in your handshake. That's your word. I didn't have much growing up, and there's not a whole lot that I have, but your honor is very important. And this person took advantage of that. And in 2005, he informed me that I was just an employee and that it was not my business. So I moved back down to Texas in 2005, I think it was April 2005, and lived on a couch in Comonil near Jasper and Lufkin. I started Angelina Junior College with one goal in mind, to be a lawyer, to make sure that I can protect myself and others again. I worked the art gallery business all throughout my career, our school career, while I was taking care of my father. I graduated #1 out of 1,108 students at Sam Houston. I went to Thurgood School of Law, Marsh School of Law here in Houston, graduated magna cum laude, and I'm like, well, why stop there? I got a master's degree in tax law at University of Houston. And then, yeah, that's right, and then there was a, change. I was set to go into tax law. I was working for a tax firm here in Houston, and I got a call from the DA's office. I had recently, while I was getting my master's in tax law, I submitted to do an internship at the DA's office. And they said, well, Mr. Simons, we don't hire lawyers to be interns. I'll just put you in the other stack. I paid no attention to it. Well, I get a phone call in April or October of 2013, said, we'd like to interview you. And I'm like, man, kind of hesitating. Do I really want to do this? I kind of got a path. So I went in and interviewed with Karen at the DA's office, and it was a pretty good interview. They invited me for a second interview with Michelle Onken and another really good interview. And I'm like, man, this is not bad. And then they invited me for a third interview. This interview was probably the most hostile interview I've ever gone to in my life. It was about 19 or 20 high-ranking DA officials in the room. It was like a horseshoe, and you're standing in the middle, just getting bombarded. And I mean, it's about standing your ground. And they started asking me questions, and I asked them questions back and started interviewing them. And some didn't like that, but my feelings is this. If I'm going to come work for you, what am I going to get out of it? What am I going to sacrifice? Because I'm leaving a six-figure career for $60,000. And I left there, and I think it was Aaron Burdett, another judicial candidate, was walking out and said, well, we'll be in touch in a few weeks, kind of let you know. Well, they called me like the next day and offered me the job, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. I just had this interview. I don't know if this is for me. So they said, look, come in and just watch one of the courts and see if you like it. So I went in and I watched criminal court number 11, Judge Bull's court.
Judge Bull.
And within 2 hours of watching, the decision was made that this is the right place for me. You know what, walking away from the art gallery business, walking away from the tax law to work the DA's office, it just felt like the right decision. And that's how my career started in the DA's office. So it kind of gives you a little bit of backstory on how I got to where the DA's office started.
I mean, tax law to being a prosecutor.
Well, I remember.
Quite a change.
I remember he must have been 7 days in, and then he decided to try a case, and it was up against me, and I kicked his ass. So it is what it is, you know. It is what.
And you're so modest about it too.
He's very modest. He's,
I mean, gosh.
He's one of the only people to actually get a not guilty against me, and it was when I was young in the DA. But we did have another trial. We did go 1-1.
He did.
And
he came back, and he beat me bad. It was a case that I shouldn't have lost. Pardon me.
Did you bust out your valedictorian speech from?
It wasn't valedictorian.
What was that?
I was one of 2 student body presidents at the University of Texas.
Okay, I thought you were like valedictorian.
No,
or something like that.
I was one of 2.
Julio trying to show off here on social media.
No, so Dan and I do battle, and Dan's very mad. He's upset.
Oh.
And I say, well, we're gonna have another one. I promise.
Well, I mean, if you were acting like that, I can't imagine why he was upset.
And he comes back, and he just kicks my ass. He kicks my butt. He kicks it, man. And this is what I tell you, from a lawyer perspective. Dan, you are one of the individuals who have always been, look, regardless, because you have a reputation of people saying, oh, he plays behind the boards and he plays, he hits you at the knees. You and I have had at least, when you were a DA, I don't know, 30 cases together, 25 cases together, and I have never seen you been other than above the board, ever. And in the trials that we've had, I've never seen you been other than competitive, professional, and top-notch.
Well, I appreciate that.
And
I'll tell you, that's how I was with everybody. I treat everybody the exact same way. There's no difference. I had this rule that I will tell you what I'm going to do, I will show you what I'm going to do, and I go do that very thing.
That's exactly right.
And there's no hiding the ball, and that's how it should be. And it's unfortunate that people feel that way, and I don't know if it's more of just maybe people being bitter. But,
I think it's ego.
And possibly, but you know, I didn't go and flaunt any of my wins online. I didn't go and make a big deal out of it, because despite getting a not guilty in your case, I still respected the jury, because that's what we're there for. We disagreed on something, we went to trial, jury found not guilty, thank you very much for your service. And that's how it should be and always should be.
I will say that when you came back and you ended up getting a guilty verdict on it, and then it was a shocker to me when you left the office, because I thought to myself, they just lost a really good lawyer. They just lost that, and for whatever reason it was. So I ask you, what were some of the reasons why you left? And because it was a big deal through the defense community. Oh, Dan's left. Dan's gone. But then you also went and, you got picked up by Thiessen. You got picked up by somebody who is well-renowned within the defense bar. And I'm wondering, I want to know your thought process in that and what you're thinking about it.
In the DA's office, moving through the ranks and doing what you're supposed to do, and I'm not really good at a lot of things in life, but one thing I'm really good at is I'm a hard worker. In the DA's office, we handle, 1,000 cases a month. We cycle through those. And when I started in court 10. I'd have 20 cases set for trial in 1 week, and you have to become efficient and effective, like super efficient and effective, to be able to be prepared. And my thing is if you're not prepared, you're losing. And I took that same mentality to everywhere I went. And I tried, I think, more than most attorneys try in a 3-year span than probably any prosecutor there.
One of the things that your reputation has, okay, is that you would try cases without looking at it. And you would try cases, and in my opinion, it's like, well, it's Dan. He's coming at you. He's gonna come at you. Maybe he's looked at it, maybe he hasn't, but he's gonna come at you. But also, make no mistake, there are some stories about you hiding evidence or doing things that you're not supposed to. What do you say about that?
Let's address the trials first. And as far as being prepared for trial, I looked at every case. It didn't matter what it was.
Well, I will vouch for that.
Yeah,
I will vouch for that.
And being prepared and ready for trial, that is key. You know what? You don't go into a trial, and to have the record that I had as a prosecutor, I mean, I think I had maybe 3 or 4 losses, and I tried 29 or 30 misdemeanor trials.
One of them being mine.
That's right, one being you. And you don't go in and do that against some of these top-notch defense attorneys by not being prepared. As far as hiding evidence, absolutely not.
You know that.
You don't. Well, here's the thing. I don't need to cheat to win. I'm going to beat you because of how good I am. I know what I can do. I know my abilities. I don't underestimate my opponents. And there are some great attorneys that I had really good trials with that, they thought they had it, but it just came down to, the evidence and what the case presented.
So Judge Carahan lodged a side against you, never Dan Simons.
Right.
Okay. You remember that?
I do.
All right. And
and let's set the background a little bit. You had a very contested primary. You went up against a longtime incumbent, Jay Carahan, who's been there, has been on the bench for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you decided that you were going to primary him. And you had a very contested race, and Julio's referring to a website that was set up that kind of listed all the dirty laundry against you.
Right.
And so, and now you're in another contested race that's also very heated.
I think I'm built for these races.
Well,
think.
and
you
look,
are too.
and I mean, we'll focus. I don't think it's fair to discuss anything about your opponent without him here, frankly, to respond. In all honesty, so I mean, I would prefer if you want to bring up the stuff that has been said about him and let him respond to it. But
we're going to talk about a couple things that I do want to address. And I'll tell you one thing. I'll go ahead and go back to your why I left the DA's office.
yeah,
Sure.
I left the DA's office because becoming a judge, I think it's important to know both sides. I'm not, and people are like, oh man, this guy's a career prosecutor. He's gung-ho, he's all this. No. Now, when I went to the defense side, they said the same thing about me on the opposite side. Man, this guy's all defense and he's just so aggressive at his cases. No, it's just about doing your job. It doesn't matter what job I do, I'm going to do it to the fullest extent in my abilities. And the job really didn't change from being a defense attorney and a prosecutor. It's look at the evidence, what do you got? If we don't agree, we go to trial. And on the defense side, I'm unbeaten. But to go back to your Never Dan Simon's webpage that my opponent, you know, it was pretty tacky, but you know, if you want to talk about, you know, the presumption of innocence, if somebody can level an allegation against you and then you come back and actually prove that you're innocent and prove the person lied, why would it be fair to still bring that up as if it were true? That's exactly what I did in this case. I proved the other person was lying, and not just once, but 2 different occasions. And from a public job, the DA's office, I promise you, if any of that had any ounce of truth, I would have been fired. And that comes to my opponent, Franklin Bynum. He can come in and address this. We talked about this at the Chronicle. This is no surprise. He worked in the public defender's office. He was an attorney for the public defender's office, and he got fired on the spot for threatening and harassing a female coworker and cheating on his timesheets. Now, that's the difference between me and him. When I had an allegation leveled against me, what did I do? I didn't go attack anyone. I went back, got all the evidence, submitted everything, and I've got those packets, and if anybody out there wants them, email me. I'd be more than happy. Let you decide for yourself. You will see that there's no hiding the ball.
Well, let me ask you this. So we live in the age of, it's a presumption of innocence. I mean, and it's not guilty or not guilty, and so what? And so what? And so these are allegations, these are things that are out there. Why should that affect someone's ability to be a judge?
Well, I think judicial temperament is really important. How you respond to adversity. Look at my entire life and how I responded. It's not as responding with hatred, animosity against anybody. It's taking a negative situation and turning it into a positive. Same thing with all that. Learning from that, I have no hard feelings for anybody at the DA's office. Even the people that leveled false allegations against me. I went to bat in one case for a defendant. I told her she could not make her case, and she lost her trial. I told her that she didn't have enough to go forward. She needed to dismiss it, or anger management, dismiss something. But the case you can't make without the victim. I went to bat for the defendant in that case. In the other case, I went to bat for a victim. It was filed as a DWI misdemeanor. A judge in Montgomery County, her parents were in an accident. The driver was driving 106 miles an hour, hit him from behind, and she had to have surgery in her neck and a lot of other things because, she'd been paralyzed. Well, they asked me to look at it, and it had sat in that office in Court 14 for 4 months before I got there. I was asked to look at it. I went and looked at it. I got the doctor's evaluation, said this is the definition of serious bodily injury. I agree with this. I presented everything I had to Allison Bainbridge, and she agreed it should be a felony. I indicted it as felony, and that was the end of it. I heard nothing about this case for 6 months. And when it came to light, it was basically kind of a hit piece on he withheld the fact that the victim was 83 years old. He didn't say that she had prior medical history. And I'm thinking, well, that's in my evaluation that I emailed and was in the report. So I copied all that and said, it shows her age right there. But more importantly, that case pled out to 5 years probated for 10 years, or 10 years probated for 5 years as a felony. I went to bat for a victim in that case, and I stand by it. And you can look at everything you want. Those are the things that people are talking about. And doing the right thing, you know what, I'm going to do it regardless. It may not be the most popular, but I'm going to do the right thing.
People talking about the right thing, about you're not guilty a few weeks back. That's what they're talking about. So you've been a prosecutor and defense attorney. I mean, and so what? So how does that matter with you being a judge?
Well, you know, I think in misdemeanors where nearly the bulk of my experience is. I've tried, I think, 31 or 32 total misdemeanor trials, including for defense and prosecution, and that's in a 3.5 to 4 year span. My total trial count is right around 71 or 72 in a 4 year span. It's, you know, being a judge, it's about calling balls and strikes. Leave politics outside the courtroom. There's no reason to say, I'm going to use this. I mean, my opponent he's running under the Democrat Socialist banner. He goes, I'm a Democrat Socialist backed by the National Democrat Socialists of America. There's no reason to say that. There's no reason to take that into a courtroom. GOP, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, leave that outside. It's about following the law, be reasonable, don't legislate from the bench, treat everybody equally and fairly. One thing about being a prosecutor, when I looked across an audience, I didn't see defendants. I saw people. I saw, you know, someone's mother, father, daughter. There are people out there, and it's a misdemeanor.
Well, okay, so fine. So let's take away socialist, Republican,
Okay.
Democrat. What differs from you from Franklin?
The big difference is you want your judicial temperament. How did I respond under adverse position in a bureaucracy in the DA's office? I didn't go attack anyone. I didn't get fired. My opponent can't say that. He's never also worked on both sides either.
Your leave was a big question through the grapevine.
Yeah.
It was,
But
man.
I mean, look, the
Well, we
reality
can address
is
that if you want. I got an answer for that if you'd like.
But the reality is, it's all politics.
It
I
is.
mean, at the end of the day, you know, whether you disagree or agree with socialism or not socialism, I mean, I personally couldn't get on board with that. But it's all politics. I mean, as long as you have judges who are running with an R or a D beside their name, you know, there's going to be politics involved. I mean, to be fair, the way you run the primary was basically by the allegation and Judge Carahan performing gay marriages.
See, that...
Tell us,
let's go ahead and
respond
talk
to
about
that.
it.
Yes, I mean, I think that was a big issue.
Because that was a big issue.
let's talk about
that
that.
the Republican Party really, you know, they mounted you to go against him because he had been performing gay marriages and apparently pissed off the establishment of the Republican Party.
You know, and that's what I would say if I were my opponent, because the reality is I didn't run onto that. I think if you get elected as an elected official, you need to do the job you're supposed to do. It wasn't about doing gay marriages. He would stop court and do marriages during court session. Just stop, like, what are you doing? It was more like, you know what, you are hired for a job, do just that job. But that wasn't why I ran against him. I ran against him for something a lot worse than I mean, things that people really talk about. And it's about judicial independence. You have got to maintain judicial independence. Whether you contribute to my campaign or not, you're going to be treated the exact same way as everybody else that walks through that door. There are no doing favors for any friends, period. Not going and testifying for friends, nothing like that.
Do you think lawyers who practice in the criminal court should be banned from donating to any of the criminal judges?
I think judges should be elected and trusted enough to keep their independence outside the door room. I've got a lot of good friends that are judges, and I promise you, when I walk through that door, it's no longer Dan, my friend. It's your honor and counselor. It's the same thing. Keeping that, I mean, it's not that difficult to do. It is putting on two hats, and you see it all the time. You can be best of friends, and there are some judges down there that people just absolutely disagree with and just don't care to be friends with. I'm friends with them outside the courtroom, and we may go back and forth in the court, but it's keeping that. And, you know, I think that's healthy. But we all work, we're co-workers. We all work together. It's almost impossible for you to work, and you work down there every day.
Yeah,
How
right.
can you say you're not friends with a lot of those people? But I promise you, you don't need somebody. You're good enough that you don't need somebody doing favors for you. You don't need a defense-leaning judge. You don't need a state-leaning judge. A lot of great attorneys, you don't need good attorneys. You don't need it. You just need a judge that's going to be fair,
Right.
follow the law, be reasonable about it, and remember also, we're in misdemeanor court. Okay, I mean, let's go back to where we are. Let's keep that in focus.
We're going to revisit probable cause a couple times, is what you're saying.
I don't know about that. It's like,
Oh,
revisit.
man, come on, Dan.
You're asking for favors already?
Commit to something.
Already? You know what? Every case is independent in itself. And I can tell you this, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter anything outside of what the facts are. and every case is going to be talked about or decided on its own merits.
Let's talk about how you left the district attorney's office, because it was you left in a cloud of smoke. It was like, oh, what, Dan's left? What, Dan? I mean, you were skyrocketing, man. You were going up. Dan's getting not guilty, not guilty. I mean, pardon me. Guilty, and JV, not guilty. Guilty, and, you know. And then suddenly,
well, I'll tell you,
you're out.
I left the DA's office because I wanted to. They didn't want me to leave. I won. When you get attacked enough, but you defend yourself and you clear your name, it should be the end of it. But for me, it was like, where am I headed in life? And I'm like, well, I think being a judge would be appropriate for someone like me. Look at where I've come from. There's not another judge out there that can say, they can look across the aisle and see all those people and almost relate to every one of them. I can relate to so many people. That's what made me so efficient and so effective about being a prosecutor and defense attorney, picking a jury. And being a judge is what I wanted to do. I left on my own terms. I was also told that if you wanted to come back, you're welcome to come back. And
you hear Ryan Trask came back.
Yep, Mark.
So he went and worked for Tyler Flood for like a week, and then went right back to the district attorney's
Mark,
office.
and I'll tell you what, Mark Thiessen, an amazing guy. The guy, he's brilliant at what he does. And I talked with him a few times, had a few cases with him, and, you know, it was kind of an honor. We had one case that we were getting ready to trial in Court 9, and he said, I'm not trying this case with you. And I'm thinking, well, no, you are. We're ready. We're up.
Yeah.
He made sure we didn't go to trial. He goes, and I said, why not? And he goes, one, I'm going to wait until you get moved out of this court, and then I'm going to try that case. And I said, Mark, that's not even right. So, and this is where the genius part of Mark is. He did that very thing. I got moved to juvenile, and Bianca Roberson came in there and took it. And the case was, the lady was passed out at a red light with the doors locked, car on. They had to break into the car, smell alcohol, puke all over her. I mean, in the middle of the night on spur, I think, 5.
5.
And
of course it was spur 5.
And amazingly enough,
hey, Cougs.
Amazingly enough, Mark Thiessen, that case was dismissed mid-trial. I'm like, how? There's no way. And I'm thinking, and that's where, I mean, you talk about mad respect, is like, wow. And when we discussed, I said, you know, I'm looking at maybe leaving the DA's office. And he said, well, you know, I mean, Matt Elwell's leaving. Why don't you come work with me? And I came down and talked to him, and I said, you know what? I think it's important, just like with this interview. I gave you full disclosure. I'll tell you who I am, where I come from, where I am. And he offered me a job, and I went there, and, you know, nothing but great things about both him and Tally.
I found it very peculiar that Mark supported Jay Carahan, and you were working with him during the process, and ended up beating Jay Carahan, Judge Carahan, in the primary. How was that? Talk to us a little bit about that. Was that an issue, or wasn't? Or?
Both Mark and Tally, you know, complete, just awesome people through the whole thing. They have a friendship with Judge Carahan, and I have respect for Jay Carahan.
Sure, everybody has respect for Judge Carahan.
He needs to know that out there too. Mad respect, 16 years public service. You know, I disagreed with what you did, and when you disagree with someone and you got to do something about it. Run against them if you disagree with it. That's kind of how our world is. And they were pretty cool through the entire thing. I didn't ask anything from them, and I didn't want to put them in the middle of it. I kind of did because I worked there, but yet had a really good friendship, and I'm hoping that, you know, I didn't want anybody taking anything out on them. And honestly, they're awesome through the whole thing. And I left there recently. I'm still helping out part-time. But, you know, nothing but great things, and they handle it very, very professionally, and I do appreciate everything those guys did for me.
Look, when you said earlier, you said, this is misdemeanor court.
Yes, sir.
You kind of said, it was almost implying like it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, let's talk about where we are in misdemeanor court.
Right.
A lot of people, a lot of times this is a first-time offense. And we're coming in there, not everybody, coming misdemeanor, it's not about going to jail. A lot of it is about how can we rehabilitate? What can we do to make sure this person doesn't reoffend or graduate to felony? What can we do? As a prosecutor, I always wanted to look for ways, you know, deferred adjudications. What can we do? PTIs were just starting when I was a misdemeanor, but when I was a chief, man, I mean, whatever we can do, because I think people work a lot harder for that. And I would like to know the numbers. And, you know, if I get elected, I'd like to keep tabs on all the PTIs that are given in my court and versus how many people reoffend or violate versus deferred adjudications and how many people reoffend.
Let's talk about PTIs. Are you going to be a judge? I mean, not in any particular type of situation.
Okay, yeah.
Let's talk about PTIs.
Sure.
Are you going to be a judge who believes in intervening in some of these type of PTIs or agreements?
And being a prosecutor and defense attorney and looking at it from that side, a lot of these agreements are from the state with defense attorneys. And yeah, there is an agreement for the probation office to kind of keep tabs. And I think this is where the judges have their hands to make sure, because they're still on bond. But for the most part, you know, there are some serious facts that would warrant that this is probably not appropriate for PTI. But every case is like, let's listen to the facts. I'm not going to have a set of rules and say, well, if you have this, absolutely not. No, everything, it's all individually based.
So it's going to be like, hey, have you talked to Judge Simons kind of deal? Have you talked to him about it? Kind of deal, like everybody's like, oh, is this a PTI? And be like, I don't know, have you talked to Judge Simons? It's going to be like that?
I can promise you this, my policies and where I stand on things, you will know where I stand when you walk into my courtroom.
Well, what do you think about bond, man? You're going to be given ankle monitors and breathalyzers and patches?
You know what? Depends on the facts of the case. If somebody's doing indecent exposures around schools, I kind of would want to have an ankle monitor on that person. So it's about the facts of the case. Let's talk about bonds, because I know that's a big, heavy issue right now. You know, about the bond fight going on. And what I've understood about the bonds is it's a lot of facts, a lot of different things you're taking consideration. You know, if the person's going to return to court, it's probably not nearly as high as public safety, victim safety, things like that. How can we make sure to, you know, while this person's pending, they're presumed innocent.
Yeah.
Bonds should not be used to, oh, they're guilty.
Do you believe that, man? For real.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that these people are coming to court and they're presumed innocent.
Absolutely.
Do you truly believe that?
I do as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, and as a judge, as hopefully a future judge. I do, because, you know, every case is unique and different. And it's not about, in a lot of these cases, it's can the state prove their case? And we've all experienced that. What does the state have? But when it comes down to bonds, what you get is a small PC statement. It's pretty one-sided. And it's listing facts. And the bonding thing is like this. For most part, they don't need to go to jail as far as they come into court. Let's make sure, get them a PR bond if they warrant it. But it's not about the setting a bond amount that concerns me as much as let me allow to look at the facts and then give bond conditions. Let me have discretion on that. If it's a DWI second, I kind of want an interlock in that person's car, because if they go out there and kill someone, that comes back on me.
Yeah, that's your name.
And if it's an indecent exposure and they're going to schools or whatever and I don't have an ankle monitor, that comes back on me. Let me maintain that discretion. I'm not asking, you know what, let's not abolish the bonding system. And I'll tell you this, it's crazy to sit there and say, let's get rid of cash bonds completely. And let me tell you why.
California just did that.
And let me tell you why, though. Let's say you have someone come in to get a PR bond, and you say, all right, sir, no drinking, here's a breathalyzer, and they continue to violate bond over and over and over again. What are you going to do? You're going to just lock them up and say, well, we don't have cash bonds, so you're just going to stay there until I feel like you can get out?
I don't think so. I think that's wrong.
Absolutely. Because there are situations to where it is appropriate. But going back to, and not taking away from the serious of misdemeanor, but it is misdemeanor. And this is the opportune time for us to try to rehabilitate or fix if that's where we go with it. What can we do to make a difference? Because I don't want people, if I can help somebody not get a conviction that's going to ruin their life for the rest of their life, what can we do? But also, they're going to have to earn it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and I said this a couple weeks ago, I mean, I feel like the bond lawsuit and this new way of doing bonds has actually created more problems than it's solved. It's created all new problems, because I feel like, honestly, you've got people now sitting in jail for 2 to 3 days before they can even get before a magistrate to get a bond set. Whereas the old cash bond system, I mean, immediately upon being arrested, they had a $500, $1,000 bond or whatever, and they were getting processed out. If somebody could come down and bond them out, they were getting out, you know, and you didn't have this backlog. So, I mean, and I don't know how this could functionally work, but is there some way that, you know, you as a judge, could the judges get together possibly and implement a summons system for some of these cases?
I'll tell you what I would like to do. I would like to see all the judges come together at the same table as the defense bar and the prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. I would like to sit, how can we make this a system more efficient and more effective? How can we, one, you're presumed innocent. You should not be disrupting your life and your world. I understand you have a pending matter, but you also have a job. A lot of people have kids that are going to school. We're having people come back over and over again. Is there a better way to do this? How can we make this more efficient? But we also can't take away from the seriousness of this is a criminal matter.
Well, okay, so let me ask you, how are you going to make this more efficient then?
Well, I think.
What are your thoughts? I mean, if you preside, I mean, it's it's bench number 8.
Honestly, I'm open for ideas. What can I do? I'm open to say, can we do a schedule? Can we pretty much know where you're going to be? And Montgomery County does this. You pretty much know what trial date. You can put 5 or 6 dates on your calendar. You know where you stand and things are moving. Can we also waive some of these appearances? Is it just the fact you're coming to court because the state and your attorney's got to get evidence and exchange? But a lot of attorneys also don't like that because that's when they get paid from their...
I think that's the biggest problem. And, that was another thing I mentioned. I feel like that there is a perpetuation of that problem because a lot of lawyers use that as a way to get money from their clients, and also on the appointed system. I mean, there's a lot of lawyers that get paid by the appearance on the appointed system too.
Right.
And so the longer the case drags out, there's a financial incentive for that for them. Rather than getting the case resolved timely.
And I think that's where having the schedule is
right.
really important to say we got to keep this moving. So one, we don't allow people to abuse that.
Yeah.
Not that I know. I mean I haven't really heard that, but I can see where that probably does happen. But it all comes down to communication. How can we make this more efficient, more effective, without losing the quality of justice?
So tell me, okay, fine. So let's talk about your docket.
Okay.
How are you going to run a misdemeanor docket with 2,000, 3,000 cases a year? And you're going to have 5, what are you going to have, 4, 3, 2 appointed attorneys throughout the year? Each of them handling 500 cases a year? And everybody wanting a jury trial? I can't move a freaking case without setting it for trial nowadays. I cannot move. Trespass, they're like 30 days. I'm like, okay, we're just going to go ahead and set this. Trial dockets are getting backed up. People are getting unsecured bonds. You have a docket that is overflowing. How are you going to manage that, Dan?
Well, the good news is that's what my life's been all about. How to be efficient and be effective about things. In the DA's office, one of the things, you can go look at my records, which they're open records. I go for it. Look at my timesheets. When you look at my timesheets, you will see that I never maxed out on comp time. Most prosecutors max out after their first year. I never maxed out, and yet I was efficient and effective, and I kept things rolling. I was always prepared. You can look through all my evaluations, and you will never see where I wasn't prepared. There's a more efficient, more effective, but it also comes down to communication. Let's talk with the staff. What can we do to make things better? But it's bringing everybody to the table. Just on an island doing your own thing, my way or the highway, I don't think it's going to cut it.
Yeah, but it's going to have to be your way or the highway as a judge on the top bench trying to figure out your court.
Well,
what are you going to do, man?
It's about coming down to what would be the best way to move a docket.
I haven't heard anything that you've said that's going to move any docket right now.
Really?
What? You're going to have a scheduling order? You didn't tell me that.
Well, we can do a number of things.
Well, tell me.
We can do a scheduling order. We can waive some appearances while people are getting evidence. We can move them up a little quicker. We can have settings in between their settings so prosecutors and the defense bar can get their evidence and they still stay on path to get paid from their clients if that's what they're doing. But more importantly, they're just going to have to rope in on that. It is going to have to keep these things moving, but it comes down to the DA's office too. It's going to have to be communication there because the judge is not there as an adversary for either side. Yeah, you're there just to move forward. And if you're saying, you know what, you're at basically a crossroad that the state's not moving and I'm not moving, well, guess what? Set it for trial.
Yeah, I mean,
how am I going to facilitate that? Well, that would be an unfair thing to ask.
Well, I don't think it's the judge's job.
It isn't,
Julio, to move the docket. I mean, we've had this. The defense bar has debated this. I mean, it's not the judge's job to move the docket. The judge shouldn't be looking at their docket numbers anyway. It shouldn't be a concern. It should be: are people getting justice?
Right.
Are defense lawyers getting the evidence they need? timely, so that that is what contributes. Don't worry about what the docket numbers are. Okay, it's not. My job is not to move the docket per se and move all these people. It's to ensure that justice is served. And if it takes somebody, longer than another person because somebody's, jerking around the evidence or whatever, that's where the judge comes in. So I think you got to rephrase that, because I don't think the priority should be moving the docket.
I bring it up in the sense because I know Franklin Bynum has told me that he's going to be giving 10-day trial settings for everything other than, I believe he said everything. And if you're listening, Frank, call in. And everything other than assault family members and DWIs, he's going to be giving everybody 10-day trial settings.
We got a phone call. Let's see who's calling in.
When we talk about trying to make
phone.
What's that? Phone call?
Yeah, we got a phone. We got a question for you.
Sure. What's the question?
I don't know. Let's find out. Hello. Thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Hey, good evening. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hold on. I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you not hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. It's
all right.
Like a television commercial.
So I've kind of got a 3-part question for Dan, if that's okay.
You're gonna have to break it up. Use small sentences, small words, and short sentences for us.
Okay. So my first question is going back to the bond conditions. He said that it was fact-based and that he wanted, if there was somebody who was, going around being, doing indecent exposure, he would want to monitor. And then he asked for facts. However, these are just allegations. So is it facts or allegations? Is there a presumption of innocence or not? He kind of was speaking out of both, into his mouth. I'd like to hear what he has to say about that.
Sure. There are allegations and it's probable cause that we're going off of, and it is kind of one-sided. But based on what is told to the judge and depending on the situation, then we discuss what would be the appropriate bond conditions for somebody like that, and a lot of times it's with the probation officer.
You think you're able to make those kind of decisions?
Absolutely.
Why?
I mean,
why not better than Franklin?
What do you mean?
Why isn't Franklin just as good as you to make those decisions?
You know what? And I don't know Franklin. I'm not going to compare myself to Franklin. What I will say this is you can count on being fair, being reasonable, and me following the law at all times. It's not taking the parties and using it as a platform and saying, I'm going to do this and do that before listening to the facts. And you come back to...
But, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to break in because
Sure.
you keep saying the word facts. They're not facts, they're just allegations by one party.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem we've got now in society is everybody is confusing facts, presumption of innocence, and what's going on in Washington hasn't helped people really understand those definitions. But I get, and look, there's wordsmithing here going on. I get what both of y'all are saying, caller and Dan. I mean, the reality is...
I'm picking on you.
That's all good.
I'm picking on you.
No, bring it.
I'm picking on you,
Bring
man.
it.
I got to
But
bring it, man.
I think what the caller is saying is you're going to decide... I mean, they can't be facts because they're not, they're not proven. They're allegations.
For the caller, allegations. But whatever's read in front of you, it is, as a prosecutor, at the very top, it's just a statement of facts. That's what it reads at the top. When you're looking at that, it's a statement of facts. So it is more of a semantic, but it is a presumption. But it's not, I'm not there punishing them for an allegation. It's about public safety. And, a lot of it may not even warrant any conditions at all except you come to court. But some cases are going to be different than others based on the allegations. How about that? So,
third part.
What's your second and third part?
Well, she had the second. What's the third part?
I will do the second and third part, and then I'll hang up to listen.
Okay.
So the second part is, are you willing to do what Judge Jordan has done in his court, where he still allowed settings, and so that way attorneys who may work their fee schedule that way still get paid, but you don't have to approach to get the client's appearance waived. You just let the coordinator know that nothing's going to happen. Appearance waived, boom, done. Do you think that's an efficient system? And then the second part of that is, I know you're coming in late, but I would like to hear, if you had been elected before, who would you have sided with on the bond issue? Would you have gone Judge Jordan or the other judges? Thank you, and I'll hang up.
All right.
Thanks for the call.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Let's first answer the first part about, I mean, And that comes down to the coordinator and having a staff that is efficient and effective.
Sure.
If an attorney is asking for to waive their client's appearance, yeah, you don't need to approach me for that. Now, if we're going on a year and I'm seeing a pattern, absolutely. At some point, we got to have some stops on this. I don't want people abusing that. And as far as the second part about, you know what Judge Jordan does, you know, he does what other judges do. I respect both sides, but when it comes down to the bonds, as a prosecutor, I didn't agree with the bonding schedule. It's like, okay, if you have this, you're automatically going to get this. I disagreed with that, but at the DA's office, I followed that. But with the stripping everything away, because you got to remember how this all came up. They came down to saying, we're going to ask one question at the jail. Can you afford bond? And if you say no, you sign an affidavit and you're free to go. Where you never even went before a judge. You can't do that. Come on, that's ridiculous. There's all those other factors to consider. All I'm asking is allow me to have some discretion. For the most part, people are going to get PR bonds. They're going to, I mean, it depends on the allegations at hand, and if it's a DUI second assault family member, let me put a condition on there, you know, no contact with the victim. I mean, it depends on the situation, but it's going to come down to, as far as the bonding goes, the judge, I think the Fifth Circuit came back and they sided with the judges like, yeah, they get some discretion. And I just want to keep that. And we keep those factors that we consider for public safety and victim safety, and they're going to return to court.
So are you cool with PR bonds or are you not cool with PR bonds?
For the most part, I think a majority of cases, they're probably going to get PR bonds.
Objection non-responsive. It's a yes or a no. I kid.
It depends on the situation.
Hey,
I know
okay.
the lawyer answer depends.
So let me ask you, man. You're coming into one of the, at least you know, Jimmy's been a lot around, and you're older than I am too. I think. How old are you?
I turned 40 this year.
Yeah, man, you're like as old as Jimmy, old man kind of style.
Having a life outside of the DA's office and before law.
Yeah, you guys are all old.
Again, it goes back to, not having, having outside real world experience. You're talking about making me for a judge. It's having a lot of things outside. It's running a business. It's managing employees. Being a judge is not just deciding the law. It's about running a court, running a business, essentially. Mm-hmm. And you're asked to do it under extreme conditions here in Harris County. But there's a better way to do things, and I'm open to finding out better solutions. To one, we don't want to back up our jail dockets and keep people in jail. I think that costs the county a lot of money. How can we facilitate this? What can we do? Not lose the quality of justice and everybody get justice, fair justice, period. Not on a timetable of, I want to move this docket and I got to no matter what. As a prosecutor in Court 14, and you know how I was as a prosecutor. I wasn't like a cupcake giving you everything, but I managed to drop Court 14 in less than 3 months, over 200 cases when I was a chief in Judge Field's court. Look at the numbers when I was there. And it wasn't because I was just dismissing. It's about negotiating and working with people and looking at everything. And that's what I'm going to take right into the bench hopefully when I get elected.
Mm-hmm.
What you got? You were about to say something.
Well, I thought you were going to say something.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
So I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you. Okay, so do you have any judges you look up to nowadays that you look up to or that are mentors to you or that you appreciate and such?
I've had a lot of judges, really good judges that I got to be a prosecutor in front of. It was Judge Ross, my first judge ever.
Judge Ross. I just tried that case. The thing when I did the little napkin on the smiley face. Just tried it against him. Judge Ross is an amazing judge.
That was probably one of the best things that could have happened in the DA's office, being in his court first. Because, you know what? The way he ran things, the way he was with his court, many years of experience, presiding judge. I think he was there for like 30, 35 years. Just an awesome person. I went from there, went across the street to one of the other judges. I did all the JP courts. And then I went to Judge Wilkerson. Went up to felony court where I was Judge McGee, another awesome judge. She was, by the book. She followed the law. She was very efficient with her courtroom, how she did things. She visited PC on every case because some cases that she was like that she wouldn't let the docket get stacked up with things that shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of amazing judges, and one in Misdemeanor Court that people were really worried about when he got elected was Judge Dan Spute. Being an ex-police officer. Right. And
the Bulls running the circuit. It's Judge. I mean, they're all related. Judge Bull, Judge Spew.
Yeah, they're related.
Yeah,
So
I mean, they're running the thing.
you take Judge Dan Spute for a moment. The guy, you know, you would think being an ex-police officer, narcotics officer, and everything else, he's going to be, you know, state leaning. No, he is down the middle. It's not about being on one side or the other. It's not adversarial in his part. He's there to do a job, and he's done a fantastic job.
Right.
And he's one of the judges that I look up to. That, you know, that this is how things are done. I think we can even do even better. But he's somebody that hopefully I get to, you know, will walk me through this process and help me out. But for the most part, being qualified for this job, you take my years of experience back to military, you take being the DA's office, all the trials that I've done, most but bulk being a misdemeanor, and what I have to offer and my judicial temperament and what I can bring to this and compare it to my opponent, you'll see that I'm clearly the person. And talking about Franklin, bring him on the show. You know what? I'm not talking bad about Franklin. That's one thing that I will not do about any candidate. I've only talked about just facts and facts that I've substantiated personally. When I got the paperwork about, you know, getting fired for threatening a woman and cheating on timesheets, I didn't go and make that public. I first wanted to find out more, going, who investigated this? Who did this? And it turned out to be another attorney, and they're seeing a pattern of this for a long time, brought it to their attention and confronted, and they said, well, we don't have any evidence. But what I'm getting with this is this. It's the response. It's the response. No woman should ever feel threatened or harassed, especially at a workplace or any point for any reason. There's not an excuse big enough or good enough you can give me to say, you know what, that woman deserved it. I disagree with that. And coming into a courtroom, you've got to consider these things. If you're already at one office, you get fired, now you're going to be a judge. Is that how you're going to lash out at your staff? There's a lot of women that work down there. Is this what your response is going to be when you're challenged?
Allow me to defend Franklin for a moment.
Absolutely.
I believe Franklin is an outstanding individual. I believe that that he's honorable and is a great candidate, and is not only and is also a great lawyer. And in fact, he's one of the on Jeff Ross. He's one of the top lawyers of the year. I think he's good.
And the
I think you're good too, though. I'm not saying that I think he's better than you either, though.
And the interesting thing is, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just disagreeing with judicial temperament in a public office already. It's like, you want to ask what separates us? I didn't get fired from my job at the DA's office, and I went through a lot. I defended my ground, and I did it with dignity, and I did it very judicially. I did it with direct response, and I proved that that was incorrect. You have to look at, if you're going to separate us, you've got to look at that right there. That should tell you a lot.
The Never Dan Simon's website put some stuff about you.
He said
about leaving about your record at the district attorney's office.
Right.
Now, you had like 50 wins and you kicked everybody's ass except mine. Except once.
Keep coming back to that.
But there was this thing, and I waited to see how you performed as a defense attorney. And I must say, you kicked ass, man. You've done real good.
Thank you.
You've done real good. And on the bench, we're going to hold you to it, dude.
Absolutely.
And we're going to roast you on this show, man. You start being crazy and you get the bench, dude, we're going to talk a bunch of junk about you, and we're going to ask you right back on this show.
That's where and that's where I want everybody to understand. It's not my bench. Right. It's the people's bench. I work for you. Hold me to, like as a prosecutor, when I went and did an opening statement to a jury or did voir dire, I tell people, look, don't hurt me, don't help me, hold me to my burden. Hold me to it, absolutely, because we hold people accountable. That's why I ran against an incumbent. Well, to me, everybody you're accountable for your actions.
Yeah, and to me, the most interesting part, because we've only met a couple times prior to you coming on this show. I never tried a case against you. We didn't have too much interaction when you were at the DA's office. But the most interesting thing I learned about you tonight was your background and your history growing up. Mm-hmm. To me, that's more important than how many years somebody spent at the DA's office, how many trials somebody had, how many wins somebody had. That stuff, everybody who runs for judge is going to have, they're going to be a lawyer because Texas law requires it. My point has always been, we need people on the bench who have had some life experiences, who didn't just go straight from high school to undergrad to law school to the DA's office where they stayed until they became a judge. There's no life experiences in there.
I got to talk to you about that for a moment, because see, this is where in the DA's office I might have made a mistake. I tend to say what I feel. And we were in a meeting with Devin Anderson and Melinda Hill, and there were 15 other prosecutors in there, all the misdemeanors, and they asked, what we can do to make this better. And I said that very statement you just said. I said, we've got to have some training for leadership. A lot of kids come here, mom and dad paid for college, mom and dad paid for law school, straight to the DA's office. They've never had another job. And I can tell you right now, I didn't earn a lot of friends when I said that. And it wasn't, and what they didn't understand by me is I wasn't trying to put them down. I'm just saying, look, there's an outside world, and when you get put into a position of power, be reasonable. Just think, look, it's not about, it's a very important position, and leaving the DA's office, I don't think there's anything more powerful than a person can do than this. When you have the power and you voluntarily give it back.
Yeah.
I wasn't forced out. I wasn't asked to leave. I didn't try to struggle to keep power. I voluntarily gave it back. And I don't think anybody out there can do something more powerful than that.
No, I mean, I find your story the most compelling part about your candidacy. Frankly.
Right.
I really do.
appreciate that.
No, because I really could care less how many trials you won, how long you were at the DA's office.
How many times you lost to me.
Yeah, I could care less about that even more. But no, I mean, that's the most compelling part to me, because I want to find people like that to be on all of our courts. Because for me, I know I wouldn't be a good judge. The reason is because I was one of those. I went from high school to undergrad. I took a little time off before going back to law school, but I've been a defense attorney my entire career.
Right.
I don't think I would be a very good judge for that reason. I don't have a broad base of experience from which to sit in judgment of other people. I just don't. I don't have a lot of perspective, and I mean, at least I'm self-aware enough to realize that. But I mean, to me, that's what's most compelling about you and what I've learned tonight from your candidacy, frankly. I mean, I'm very impressed by that.
I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that I wish we had more candidates like that who really had life experiences to draw on when, as you said, even though it is a misdemeanor court, we're still making important decisions in people's lives.
And it goes
Huge
back to say that in the misdemeanor courts, you're hitting thousands upon thousands of souls and lives a day, a year. So what you said, I mean,
and I just think it's hard. I mean, other than this show, I mean, I think it's hard to get your story out to the 3.5 million people in Harris County or however many, 2 million or whatever it is that are eligible voters in Harris County. I mean, I think it's very difficult to get that story out.
It is, and everywhere I go, I try to bring these things up to show that, look, I don't say my story for sympathy at all. I talk about it for inspiration. It doesn't matter where you come from. I grew up, white trailer trash from the other side. I was basically a throwaway kid. I should not be here. How humbling it is to be able to go out there and see all these people going, how did I get here? And, to be attacked a lot, it's about how you respond to that, and it's character building. It is what it is. So I appreciate, and I don't take back anything. And, I believe everything happens for a reason. And I can tell you just one final thought. I believe in God. Everybody has, I think, a path in life, and there's no way I'd be here if God did not help me and so many miracles in my life, and I'm thankful for all the things that have happened, regardless good or bad. So I do appreciate, and I'm very humbled to be here.
Dan Simons, we thank you for joining us tonight. For my co-host, Julio Vela, hook 'em horns. We'll see you next week on another episode of Reasonable Doubt. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.